Kentucky upsets Ole Miss 20-17 on the road in Oxford.
Yeah.
Dan Rubenstein. So, first off,
one host on this show. Is that where you're going with this?
Why don't you take it? Because
yeah,
you were the one
just
who
like
took
I took
Kentucky
the points. Yeah,
you were the one who picked Kentucky to cover here.
Yeah, I didn't pick this outright. Brad White in the Kentucky defense. It was not a fluke, and he got a lot of flack after last season with the pretty significant dip that this defense took.
Yeah.
But with even the South Carolina game notwithstanding, what they did against Georgia, what they did against Ole Miss in not just their own offense, possessing the ball, sustaining drives, but getting the Ole Miss offense the hell off the field, getting off the field on third downs and confusing Jackson Dart, turning Jackson Dart sort of one note into like heaving it downfield and hoping for the best. And he did connect with Trey Harris a good amount, but they really deterred Ole Miss, it seemed, from going to the run at all. And maybe that was a play calling miscue from Ole Miss as well. And in sort of concert, that Ole Miss was not a balanced offense like we've seen thus far this season. Kentucky and Brock Vandagriff on that huge fourth down throw. Like, it almost seemed like they learned some lessons from the Georgia game to take more chances in these big moments. Like, you only live once. And Kentucky was like, you know what? Screw it. We lost without scoring touchdowns in our first two SEC games. Like, what more do we have to lose at this point?
YOLO, baby. YOLO.
And as sort of uneven as Brock Vandagriff has been this year as Kentucky's quarterback, making the huge throws that he did, getting the lucky bounce when Gavin Wimsatt, was running it into the end zone and the ball popped out and recovered. Like, Dane Key looks kind of incredible right now.
Dane Key had a drop issue last year.
And I don't know, he has completely redeemed himself. Looks like an all-SEC caliber receiver.
He looks really good. He looks really good, yeah.
That, it's one of those things where, like, what did we say this year? Like, let's extend some grace. You're not who you are in week 2. Maybe you're going to be close to what you are in week 5, 6, 7, whatever. And if your starting point is this Kentucky defense, again, with the lumps they took against South Carolina, of course, as part of the story, man, Kentucky, what they did in Oxford was one of the most incredible accomplishments of the year thus far, considering where they've come from. So great for Kentucky. That defense is locked down.
The defense
they were
is very
harassing
good.
Jackson Dart.
This was their biggest road win since 1977 when they went on the road and beat number 4 Penn State Nittany Lions.
Yeah, high school graduation year for you.
Of course.
Yeah.
This is very much on brand for Kentucky.
Yeah.
To ugly a game up. And I guess it shouldn't be a surprise to see them do it against Ole Miss since they just did it a few weeks ago against Georgia. But still, I feel like in the moments thereafter, 13-12, they lost that game to Georgia. The inkling was to just sort of pan that game, to write it off and say, well, we know Kentucky usually has a good defense, but Georgia played a bad game.
Right.
I think we could now definitively say that the reason they had a bad game was because of the Kentucky defense.
Right.
Because Ole Miss in the first 4 weeks of the season, that offense looked like the friggin' Death Star. If Kentucky can do this to them on the road, it's fair to ask the question. It's fair to wonder, can they also do it against Tennessee? Can they also do it against Texas? They've got some heavy hitters that are still on this schedule. It is not an easy road the rest of the way. We probably need to upgrade how we view this team within the context of the SEC, within the context of the 2024 season. That is not to say they're winning the conference. But at a minimum, the fact that they could do this now to 2 teams with certifiably good offenses is meaningful.
Yeah.
So good on them. A hell of a win. As I said, their best road win since 1977. 20-17 was the final score. The other thing I would add on the Ole Miss side, sort of peak frustration.
Oh, yeah.
For Ole Miss, like in a vacuum, absolutely a winnable game. They had plenty of chances in this game. It was there for
missed
them.
A field goal late. Yep.
Bigger picture, this is exactly the kind of game that makes you wonder if this program has actually hit a ceiling. Because, as you know, this has been one of those popular narratives around Ole Miss. It's one of those things that comes up every time people start talking up, would Lane Kiffin leave Ole Miss to go to Florida, to go to somewhere else? And they say often, other people, not necessarily us, often say, well, it's a program that's capped out. And you could only go so far at Ole Miss. It would be better to go elsewhere where they have better resources and a better system around it. And if he actually wants to win something, he needs to go out. He needs to go outside of, Oxford in order to do it. And I understand if you're an Ole Miss fan, hearing that would make you defensive. These are the types of demoralizing, dispiriting games that make you wonder, oh, is that actually true?
Right.
It's losses like this in a year like this where it felt like so much was going Ole Miss's way via the portal, via the schedule, which set up pretty well, still sets up pretty well for them. The season is still in front of them. Okay, this is not to say it's over. We know there's a new playoff system in effect now. They could easily still be one of the top 12 teams, but this is one of those games that I think, unfortunately, if you're an Ole Miss fan, makes you question the very integrity and the beams that are holding this program up.
Yeah, and even looking at the results of this game and the results of close Ole Miss Kentucky matchups these past few years, the narrative, fair or not, around Ole Miss's offseason is they were bringing in Juice Wells. They were bringing in Walter Nolan, not for Kentucky, for Georgia, for Alabama, right? That they've reached this 10-2 ceiling. Who are the playmakers we need to add to get above where we've been? And playing Kentucky at home, all due respect to Kentucky, this has not been an impressive Kentucky offense. This has not been. And look, Kentucky's defense was the winner of this game. It was 20-17 was the final. You Ole Miss to 17 points. That's the star of the game. But by the way, subplot here, Lenora Sellers maybe is just that guy because he's the only one who can do this against Kentucky's defense. This a lot of money on that portal, and rightfully so, right? If your goals are winning a national championship,
you got to spend. You got to
spend.
The other subplot that I noticed and I mentioned to you, does Jackson Dart have a little bit of a frosted mullet thing going on?
It does seem like there is something. There's a Tony the Tiger frostedness to the Jackson Dart experience, but I mean, he's always taken pride in his unique appearance with the makeup and everything. Yeah,
Jackson Dart. I think Luke Altmaier. We're working on a nice little pantheon of quarterback hair this year.
Definitely.
Which we'll continue to discuss. Make sure you hit follow or subscribe. Big win for Kentucky, right? Kudos. 20-17. They get the dub on the road.